Welcome back from your break, folks. Hopefully I find you fed, rested and watered this evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time it is where you are right now. Are we ready for another talk? I hope so, because we have one coming whether you are or not. And this next one promises to be super useful to many people here in the room. Your next speaker for the 2021 CityJS conference is Dennis from London in the UK. Dennis is a senior software engineer with DAZN, and in this talk, Dennis is promising to solve some of your infrastructure woes by converting them over to code. I'm sure that is music to your ears. If you have been looking for an excuse to play around with Terraform on the AWS stack, then this is going to be the talk for you. Please do keep your questions to one side and join us for the Q&A session, which will be starting straight after this talk. Keep those posts coming in on social media using the hashtag CityJS2021 and the comments rolling in wherever you are watching along at home. Dennis, it is my pleasure to hand the stage over to you.
Thank you so much, Tony. Hello, guys. Today we're gonna cover how we can build the infrastructure as code for our client-side JavaScript application on AWS with TypeScript. But before, let me introduce myself and give you a bit of background. Why do we need it? So, my name is DENIS ARTYUHOVICH. I'm from Belarus, but now based in London. I'm senior software engineer at DAZN. And a few words about DAZN. At DAZN, we changing every aspect how fans engage with the sport, starting from the content distribution to the awesome features which we're delivering to extend your experience. We are available in more than 200 countries and on dozen type of devices, such as various smart TVs, laptops, game consoles as PS5 and Xbox, and you can imagine how much infrastructure we have in our hands. So the question, why do we need it? To be honest, I think it's obvious that nowadays it's quite crucial to automate literally everything, and especially your infrastructure, because we may expect changes in the infrastructure even multiple times per day. And I think you can imagine how stressy it could be to do it manually. I believe it's nearly impossible. What if I forgot to document something? Or what if the dashboard on, let's say, AWS has changed and we clicked on the wrong checkbox? That's not a good thing, right? And our application grows extremely fast. We're starting with the one feature, then the second one, and then boom, hundreds of them. So to never be in such stressful situation, we need to take advantage of the infrastructure as code. And before we go on, let's recap about the two programming paradigms, imperative and declarative, because they are quite relevant when we're talking about coding for our infrastructure. So the imperative paradigm, we're defining everything step by step, usually using CLI or bash scripts. And actually, the option to define how our infrastructure will be provisioned step by step is the biggest advantage of it. But at the same time, it is a disadvantage, as it means you need to write lots of custom logic. You need to write the custom scripts for literally every single step, and you're gonna need to maintain it. So it doesn't really scale well. But with the declarative approach, you just describing the final state which you expect from your infrastructure, and then let the provider to handle the rest. To summarize, with the imperative approach, you're providing explicit instruction for literally everything, and in case if something goes wrong, you kind of gonna blame the system and adding more and more complex statements to your scripts. With the declarative approach, you're describing the output and letting the providers handle the rest, and you don't really care what happens under the hood. But there is a tricky part. Someone needs to implement those providers for you. And here is a Terraform. So if you don't know what Terraform is, it is an open source software originally developed by HashiCorp, which allow you to implement the infrastructure in code with a declarative approach. It's declarative, it's pluggable. There are lots of open source models which you can plug in, plug out, or create even your own. Big community around, and there are more than 200 providers. But what's important today that it supports TypeScript. Or better to say that Cloud Development Kit now supports the TypeScript for the Terraform. And I truly believe that it's a real game changer because we are developers, right? I kind of like the power of programming language. I've been developing for many years, and that's what I want to implement my infrastructure in. So in the next 30 minutes, we're going to create the React application, but it's going to be very basic. We just need the boilerplate. After, you will be able to apply it for your Angular, Vue.js, whatever applications you want. Frameworks you want. We're going to use AWS as a provider, as we use this one at the zone. But again, after the talk, I'm pretty sure you will be confident to implement your infrastructure for other providers as well. And we're going to complete the kind of production ready infrastructure. That's my promise for you. And now, since that, we can continue. Let's start. So yeah, one more thing. This will be kind of workshop style talk. You may expect lots of code samples, but don't worry if you need more time. After the talk, I will share with you all the links and GitHub repo, so you will find the all samples. And now let's straight to the code. First of all, we need to initialize project, which we're gonna work with. For that, we will use the yarn create react app command. We passing a name of our project, infrastructure talk demo project, and the template TypeScript. Once we execute this command, we kind of have the basic React project. I know that many of you are familiar with that. So we run yarn start to see the output. And that's good, because now we can start implementing our infrastructure. For that, we need to have the CDK available on our laptop, so we can install it globally, or you can install it to your project. It's absolutely up to you, but it's a requirement. Later, we go to create the Terraform folder, which we will use as a starting point for our infrastructure. And we're running cdktf init command with the template TypeScript. I'm also passing the local backend for simplicity reason right now. If you know what backend means in the Terraform world, that's great. But if you don't worry about that right now. We will cover it later on. So initialization is finished. And once CDK initialize our project, it also builds it. And you will see that build will fail. Don't worry about that. It happens only because we have the node models related to the React project, and CDK TypeScript configuration doesn't really expect that. So to fix, we just need to add one more option to the tsconfig for the Terraform, which will be skipping library check. And once we've done it, we can rerun our build command. And this time, everything will be OK. Here we go. All good. Now let's have a look to the project. And inside the Terraform folder, which been bootstrapped with the CDK, we can find that there is only one TypeScript file, which is main.ts, and it has a class which extends Terraform stack, which we actually gonna use to implement our infrastructure. So starting from the line 7, we're gonna write our further commands. As I said that we're going to use the AWS as a provider, we need to specify Terraform provider in the cdktf JSON. So we're just passing the AWS here, and it will allow Terraform and CDK to fetch all needed files later on. And now let's jump into the basic infrastructure. So as we have the front-end application, we need to store it somewhere to be able to get an access to it. And for that reason, on AWS, we have the S3 simple storage service, which is quite scalable, performant, and all this stuff. And it's a great starting point for us. So let's bootstrap the infrastructure for the S3. For that, we're going to create the bucket name. As we're going to build the production-ready infrastructure, I will connect it with real domain later on. So let's specify the bucket name same as our domain. We also creating the provider with the AWS provider. Actually, all these providers are available because we have installed them with the Terraform on the previous step. And we're passing the region, which can be any region you want for the S3 buckets, etc. But worth to mention that for the ACM, it's basically SSL, which we're going to use for the SSL certificate of our domain. We will need the EU East 1 region. So you can have as many providers as you want here, but just to remind you, if you're going to specify, let's say, EU Central 1 now for the S3 bucket, don't forget to create another provider for the ACM later on. Okay. Who cares about security, right? So for now, for simplicity reason, again, we're setting the public read for our access control list. We specifying that this S3 will be a website and the index document will be index.html. Once we're done with it, we need to run yarn build to build our TypeScript Terraform project, yarn synth to synthesize JavaScript to the Terraform JSON. And it will also create the output with this JSON inside the folder cdktf out. So we go to this folder, we're initting Terraform, we're running plant to see which commands will be performed, and we're running apply to apply these commands. Once you're done with it, you will see the similar output in your terminal. And after, we can build our project, this time from the root. So this is not related to the Terraform anyhow. We're building our React application, and we need to deploy our website to the S3 bucket. So for this, we're going to use AWS CLI, and we're going to use AWS S3 Sync. This is a folder name. It's output for our application. So React Create App builds everything to the build folder. And this is the S3 bucket we've been just created. We're also specifying the ACL as public read, same as we've done previously. And again, don't worry about it right now. We will change it later on. So if you've done it, you will see that by this URL, HTTP, your bucket name, S3, Amazon, AWS.com, index.html, you will see your application, which is awesome, right? So now you can share it with your friends. I can congratulate you, or probably even with QAs, whoever you want to share it with. But for the production, we at least need to connect it with the domain anyhow, right? So for this reason, we're going to use road 53. So road 53, so we're going to use road 53. Road 53 will allow us to manage our DNS. And let's jump into the configuration for it. Okay, before the configuration itself, this is a diagram how it's going to work. So basically, the user will request our website. We will point it to the road 53, and road 53 will alias the user to the S3 bucket for the content. To achieve that, we're gonna extend our configuration a bit. We're specifying the domain host. We're gonna reuse it later on. This just domain name, reuse the domain host. Don't worry about that. We're gonna specify a new road 53 hosted zone. So for this, we need to pass our provider, and we're gonna pass our host. The host will be UXBy in this case, right? So, and later we're creating the road 53 record for our domain, which will be aliased to our bucket, website bucket domain, and bucket hosted zone. Okay, so now we build it. Again, we synthesize it again. We moving to the out folder, running the plan to watch what actions will be performed, running apply. And let me run apply with you. I'm running apply. This Terraform asks me, want to perform this action? I'm telling yes. And after time, you will see that on very last step, this command gonna fail. And the reason why it's failed is because intentionally I bought the domain on the different provider rather than AWS. And actually AWS, they are not anyhow connected with each other. And I think it's quite common. So let's connect them. For that, we go into the management console, straight to the road 53. We're going to see that our A record and the hosted zone already created. And inside the hosted zone, so let me open it. Okay. So in our hosted zone, we can find the NS servers, which we need to copy and attach in our domain provider dashboard. So for this, sorry, this slide in Russian, because my domain provider in Russian doesn't have English translation, but yeah, we're moving there. We're just attaching NS servers. And once we complete with that, we can rerun our command again. So we just need to run Terraform apply. We don't need to build anything because already everything is built. We're running apply, it refreshes the state, and you will see that it performs the validation. So it may take some time to update the NS servers, and at the end, boom, everything is done. Everything is complete. And now, if we go to our domain, we're gonna see our React application. Whew. But it's still not yet ready for production. At least it should have HTTPS, I mean, right, as all other websites. Plus, we really care about the performance. So we need to take advantage of CDN. And for the content distribution network, we're going to use CloudFront. When for the SSL certificate, we can use ACM, which will provide us SSL certificate for our domain for free if we use CloudFront. Sounds exciting, right? Let's do it. Okay, yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to use the CloudFront and we're going to use AWS Certificate Manager. Let's have a look on the new infrastructure diagram. So basically, Road 53 will be responsible to redirecting our users to closest edge location on the CloudFront, when the CloudFront will be checking for the SSL certificate for this domain and retrieve object for caching during the very first request or after the caching validation from the S3 bucket. So to achieve that, we starting with the ACM. We creating the ACM certificate. We again passing our provider we created in the beginning. We passing our domain name. We want to wildcard all our subdomains. That's why starting with the asterisk and then domain host. And we also creating the new validation record, same as we have created the A record for our subdomain. So, but this time we passing same zone ID as the Road 53 zone ID, which we have created here. But for the name type and records, we passing the ACM certificate outputs. For the validation itself, to connect, we need to connect these both things. So we're passing the certificate RAN from the ACM certificate, and we're passing the validation record from here. And now the CloudFront distribution. For the CloudFront distribution, we specifying the same provider. We passing the origin with the domain name, with the bucket regional domain name here. And we telling that we're going to use the default root object as an index.html. We specifying the alias as our domain. And we don't really care about the restrictions, so we don't want to set them for now. We setting the default cache behavior, which is going to be used for all as a default one. So we want to redirect all our users to the HTTPS as we have it now. We want to compress everything. We specifying callout methods. We setting the minimum, default, and maximum time to leave. Whatever suits better for your needs. I set the default one for 1 day. And we can also specify order cache behavior. Let's say it may work well if you have some static asset which never change. So you probably want to specify min_ttl as a very long time for them because there is no reason to invalidate cache for them. But now we don't really need it. We're passing our viewer certificate from our ACM certificate we have created, and we are updating the Road 53 record because previously we used our S3 bucket as a name and zone ID, but this time we're going to use the CloudFront distribution domain name, and we're going to use CloudFront distribution hosted zone ID. Okay. So now if we run again yarn build, yarn scenes, go to the CDK out folder, running Terraform apply. We're gonna apply all our changes, and yeah, you will be able to open the website on this domain and see that it uses HTTPS now, and actually everything will be downloaded from the CloudFront. So yeah, everything is distributed now via CDN, and you will be able to access your site faster from anywhere in the world, which is great. But remember, we not really care about security. In the beginning of this talk, we said everything is public, but now I believe it's a good time to change it, because we expect that users should be able to access on our website only through the CloudFront, and we want to prevent direct access to the S3 bucket. For this reason, we need to create the origin access identity, and we will need to create the bucket policy. So let's have a look on our infrastructure diagram one more time. Now it's a bit more complicated. Same as previous, Route 53 redirect to the CloudFront. CloudFront retrieve certificate from the ACM, and it's going to retrieve objects for caching from the S3 after invalidation or during the very first request, same as it was previously. But this time, S3 has a bucket policy which will decline all requests to it without specific origin access identity, which means our CloudFront should have this origin access identity to be able to access the S3. Hopefully it's clear, and now we can implement those changes. So, lots of code there. For that, we're gonna specify the ACL now instead of the default one. We're gonna specify the private. We're gonna create the origin access identity, which will be assigned later on to our CloudFront. And we're creating the policy document, which will be assigned to the S3 bucket. So we specifying the statement to be able to access objects and to list all the buckets to allow CloudFront to retrieve files from there. You can read about it more in the documentation on the Terraform or AWS websites. And later on, we assigning our newly created policy to the bucket. For this, we using S3 bucket policy, we passing our bucket ID, and we passing the policy document, which we have just created here. Worth to mention that with the TypeScript, we're getting auto completion here, so it's much easier to implement those parts, even without the documentation if you know what you're typing. But if you're going to do it first time, you still need to open the Terraform documentation about specific providers. And now for the ACM certificate, we passing newly created origin access identity with the CloudFront access identity pass. Once we're done, we need to again run yarn build, yarn since, and go to the inside out folder. In the output folder, run Terraform plan and apply. And once you finish with that, your infrastructure will be updated. Terraform performs the apply, and we can redeploy all the files which we have previously deployed with the public access role. Access control list. So now for that, we're gonna remove everything we have on our S3 bucket. We're gonna use the AWS CLI command again. So AWS S3 remove recursive and the name of our bucket. And we're gonna copy files from the build root build folder again. This is a build folder of our React project. But this time we're not passing the ACL. Once we're done with it, we can see that our bucket domain no longer available and access will be denied when the CloudFront and Route 53 distribution still fully operable, which is expected. And that's great news. Whew, it was tough, isn't it? But few more things we need to cover, but this final bit, it's gonna be much easier than it was before, I promise you. Now let's talk about the backends. By default, we specify the local backend. What it means that after the Terraform applies anything, it creates a state which should be stored somewhere. With the local backend, it's stored on your local machine, which is probably fine until you're working alone. But as soon as you work with more developers, you want to share this backend to allow others apply any changes for your infrastructure. And for that, we need to store this state somewhere else. Terraform has plenty of backends. They are built in, and you can check the documentation and choose any you want. But as we started with AWS, I don't see reason why to not use S3 for that. So for this, we need to create the S3 bucket separately. It's not managed by this infrastructure. It will be just used to store the infrastructure state. So I have created this one Terraform backend UX by, and we're specifying the key. Key in this case, it is just the file name, which will be used to store our state. And we're specifying the region for this S3 bucket. We also importing the S3 backend from the CDKTF. And after that, we need to go to the CDKTF out folder. And instead of apply changing, we need to run Terraform init one more time, as we've done at the very, very beginning. Terraform will ask us, do we want to copy the existing state to the new backend? And actually, yes, we want. So because we previously used the local one, we want to store it on the S3 now. And after that, if you go to the AWS dashboard, straight to our newly created S3 bucket, we're gonna find this file. This file has the name of the key we specified previously. So now let's talk about why the TypeScript. Okay, so first of all, no new language to learn. Secondly, there is power, because implementing something with the Terraform itself requires you to learn about the HCL, which is fine. HCL is quite straightforward language. It's a bit more powerful than YAML or JSON, but sometimes people may be scared of it, and it's something what you need to learn. But what's the reason for that, right? So with the TypeScript, you're getting the powerful autocomplete and typings, which means less errors and increased development speed. You're also getting the all mature language advantages, including reusable functions, recursion, cycles, ES modules. You're getting the way more options for code structuring, because with HCL, if you work with it, you know that you must store everything in the single folder or perform some awkward steps to copy from the different folders if you want to do it on the CI, if you want somehow structure it differently. It's really awkward, but with the TS config, you can specify any structure for your project you want and import it from anywhere, even from different packages in your monorepo. We're getting the completely new ways of sharing. And yeah, I'm talking about the NPM here, because with Terraform previously, you can share only the Terraform modules in the Terraform registry, which is quite detached from the JavaScript world. And now you can even implement your integration test for your infrastructure in the same language. In theory, you can probably want to even import the different constants which you share between the infrastructure and test. Now, you're getting the also other tooling around, like advanced EDA features for the TypeScript. You're getting the code style tools. You're getting the linters. All this stuff you're getting for free with the TypeScript. But there is one more thing to mention, that currently CDK for the Terraform is still in alpha, and they do not recommend it to use for the production. So yeah, anyway, it's not stopping you to start learning it and try it on your pet projects, or side projects. And as I mentioned in the beginning, all the code samples available in the demo project I prepared specifically for this talk. This is a link to this project. I structured with the commits in order, same as we covered during the talk. So we starting from the initialization of Create React App project, then CDKTF project. Then we adding the S3 configuration, Route 53, CloudFront, IAM policy, and then we changing to remote backend configuration. I'm also done some few more modifications which we haven't covered here, but they are quite straightforward, like environment variables instead of hard-coded values in our TypeScript code. And that's it. Thank you so much. If you want to reach me out later on, all my contacts you can find on website denis.by. this is the project we already covered. And this is another one, quite similar to what we just learned, but has a bit more advanced structuring. So it has reusable functions instead of having everything in one stack. It also has a deployment part implemented with a Lambda function and managed by the Terraform, though it's worth to mention that it's up to you how to handle deployment. In most cases, we prefer to handle deployment separately via our continuous integration process or via even like custom dashboards. But if you feel that deployment part is really part of your infrastructure, you can achieve that as well. So that's it from me. Thank you so much, and catch you later with your questions on the Zone booth in Gazer.
Dennis, thank you very much for that super informative talk about implementing infrastructure as code in our projects. I'm sure you have inspired some of our audience to head off and convert some of their projects over to this right now. I certainly have been and may well have some questions for you. If you enjoyed that talk, or even if you didn't, please do join me in giving Dennis a huge round the world round of applause. Fantastic stuff. If that talk has left you with those questions, please do head on over to GatherTown, where our Q&A session with Dennis will be starting any moment now. If you're not on Gather, let us know what you thought of that talk over on Twitter using the hashtag CityJS2021, as well as keep those comments rolling in on YouTube. I've really enjoyed seeing your responses to some of the talks today. Dennis, what a fantastic talk. Thank you very much for delivering it as part of this year's conference, and also to DAZN for sponsoring it. And I believe we find ourselves right now in the middle of the DAZN booth. So would you like to give us just a really brief intro to DAZN, because we will be using this segment as a standalone thing?
Yeah, sure. So the Zone is an OTT platform, as I mentioned. It's kind of Netflix of sports. It's important that from this year now it's available everywhere. I mean, more than 200 countries, so literally everywhere. And we have really awesome features which extend your live experience during the live match. For example, from the latest feature my team worked on, we implemented the poll syncs. So you're watching the one soccer event and there is another concurrent soccer event, but you will be notified about the goals if they happen, and you can even jump into this stream, watch this goal and move back to the stream you originally watched. So it's really awesome. And we bring even more features like this one very soon.
Yeah, and it's been nice to watch it grow as a platform. I know when I first met the team behind it, or some of the team at least, it was released, it was out there, you were doing sports, but you've just been signing so many contracts with so many amazing sports that it's just, absolutely, if you're into sport, this is the app for you, right?
Absolutely. I'm a former boxer, so once I joined the Zone, it was really pleasure, because I heard about the Zone prior in my very first interview, because of the Canela signed the contract. I remember like $300 million, so something like that was in the news.
It's not too bad, is it? Not too bad at all.
For sure. I'm still waiting for this such rise.
I hate to break it to you, but I don't think it's coming to you. So your talk's all been about infrastructure as code, which is fantastic. And you mentioned a few tools there. At the moment, I'm mentoring somebody new into the industry. They're learning to code. It was actually Giz, who you met just before. Infrastructure as code. If I wanted to start him with infrastructure as code, what are we looking at? Is it straight in with Terraform, or would you recommend something else for somebody who's brand new to the concept?
So actually, I believe that Terraform concept is quite straightforward, and probably it was to start looking right into that, because I mean, previously all we learned based on the imperative approach when we writing the bash scripts. At least I learned it in a way myself, and it was kind of infrastructure in code, but it was unmanageable. And now with the tools like Terraform, you just starting with the providers you need. So if you with AWS, then you're learning about the AWS configuration. And it's more about the complexity of the provider you want, because AWS itself probably is quite complicated. There are some providers which provide less configuration and maybe they will be easier to learn, but I would recommend to start from something you really want to try.
Yeah. Okay. Start with that then. Sounds easy. AWS, are they the de facto provider for infrastructure as code? Because so many people have mentioned this topic in passing in their talks, and it's always alongside AWS. Are
Ah,
they the go-to for this
for
kind of
sure.
stuff?
I believe it's worth to mention that AWS is they have developed the CDK itself. So not the CDK for the Terraform, but this cloud development kit, which is allows you to like implement your infrastructure in code with the languages you know.
Yeah.
So like someone may prefer Python, some may prefer TypeScript, whatever. And yeah, that's an AWS. Be honest, it's quite popular. It's I guess a primary
I think,
player in this.
yeah, I think somebody said earlier on, it might have been yesterday, that if you're new to the industry, learn a bit of React and then learn AWS, and you'll be super employable. And learning AWS is probably impossible, just like it's impossible to learn JavaScript, right?
Yeah. You're starting from the one thing, then another one. Same as we just started with the S3, then okay, rolled 53, then what else? IAM policy, bucket policy. We need to create everything. Yeah, there are lots of things even for the kind of like it should be probably more straightforward, but they provide great flexibility, so you can configure literally everything. But for the more straightforward solution, I don't know, like you can try things like Firebase. They providing you a way how to set up your project with a one CLI command, and it kind of work out of the box, and it has also great CDN support and distribute like domain can be attached. So yeah, uh,
Sounds excellent. I love that you mentioned Firebase there, because that's actually what is next on his list to learn. So
yeah,
fantastic.
Firebase is great as well.
Introducing into databases. So with the zone, obviously you're piling on AWS stuff, and this might not be a question you're able to answer. Was there some hesitation from higher ups to outsource that kind of part of your application pipeline to AWS, or did the higher ups think that you should keep it internal and build your own, or was that not a discussion that you're aware of?
I mean, the most parts we built our own. Or sorry, I probably didn't get the question. You mean parts related to the infrastructure itself, like
Yeah. So
what
was
AWS
there?
provides?
Yeah, where you've said that you've transitioned to using more and more AWS stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, was there any pushback against moving to using AWS, or were you all in on that from the beginning?
To be honest, we all in it from the beginning, and yeah, we extensively use it across our different teams. And yeah, actually, AWS is our primary tool.
And that's the correct answer. And the reason why I know that's the correct answer, because AWS as an organization are awesome enough to sponsor this conference, so they've got to be quite good, right?
For sure.
Uh, And speaking of sponsors, if people after they've watched this Q&A hang around the DAZN booth, are they going to get to chat to you? They can talk to you
Yeah,
in a little bit more detailed about
I
this.
will join together in 1 minute. Yes.
Yeah. And do you know off the top of the head what prize there is on the DAZN booth? Because I hear you might have one.
Oh, for sure. There should be one. I don't know, actually. Yeah.
Mystery surprise prizes. They're the best kind, I find.
Yeah. Let's go and check it together.
That's it. That's it. So with you obviously do some amazing work with the zone. I'm interested to know if you do any side projects. Do you maintain anything yourself, or maybe you create some content online? Is there anything like that that you can chat about?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm trying to actively contribute to the open source. I have some open source projects. I now currently start recording some blogs, but they haven't published them yet. So probably they will be published soon, but it's not related to the development, to be honest. It's more about traveling. Uh,
Ah, cool.
yeah,
Traveling. Where are you traveling? Oh, not very much at the moment, I guess, but generally.
yeah, to be honest, I even during the last year I traveled 7 times. So
Oh
it's
wow.
it was okay.
Did you just manage to find the window in COVID?
Yes,
Or
yes, that was most complicated part. And I just literally looked through the list of countries which were not required for the self-isolation or something like that.
yeah,
And yeah, first time last year I was in Gibraltar, which was really nice.
nice.
I was surprised about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, the reason why I decided using Gibraltar, because it wasn't required to be self-isolated after.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's good that somebody in the world's been doing some traveling, because I don't think a lot of people have been. So you're very lucky. Very, very lucky.
But
So
everything gonna be better soon.
yeah, it will. And hopefully we'll all be traveling to London next year for the in-person conference. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you'll be welcomed. Based in London, I believe. Is that right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
right.
round the corner from the DAZN offices. Beautiful set of offices, by the way. So fingers crossed we'll get to actually meet on a stage
Absolutely.
at some point.
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed. Have you got many other conferences lined up this year, or are you just picking and choosing the best
Yeah,
conferences like this one?
I mean, nowadays everything is remote, and actually, I, and actually with Gazer, I enjoy this format. But before I joined this Gazer Town Chat, I thought I was a bit skeptical about the like fully remote format, because you can't really um, like chat with people and do this social part. But yeah, so probably now I will be attending more online conferences, because then my biggest concern was that if I can watch all the recordings on YouTube and even set the speed 1.5x, isn't it better?
You miss out on the amazing sponsor booths where you can win
Exactly.
prizes and potentially get yourself a new job. That's what you don't get from YouTube. We're fast approaching the end of our Q&A session, but I do have some rapid fire questions for you. So first thing off the top of your head, and let's answer it. Lightweight or featherweight?
Lightweight,
Lightweight.
for
Awesome.
sure.
Was that the weight category you were in?
Yeah, up to 57
Nice.
pounds
And front end or back end?
front end.
Front end. That
I mean,
surprises me.
yeah, I prefer, even though that I'm full stack developer, I prefer the front end, because I like to see the actual result.
Yeah.
I will say it like this.
Yeah, that's a lot of people have said exactly the same. And this is the most important one now. Tabs or spaces?
Oh, that's hard, it's very, very tricky question. You never know the answer. How many spaces?
Well, I think you've got to go with two if you're doing spaces, right? Because otherwise you might as well do tabs.
Okay, let it be tabs. But
Oh, controversial. Yesterday everyone said spaces, and today I think everyone says tabs. It's amazing. If you had to pick one to develop with for the rest of your life, would you pick Vue, React, or Angular?
React.
React, popular choice, popular choice. And finally, apples or bananas?
Apples?
Apples, second one for apples of the day. Magic. Thank you very much for your time today. It was an absolutely amazing talk. I'm really looking forward to going back and having a look at it and figuring out what it is I need to teach Giz in
Yeah,
order to do
sure.
infrastructure as code. Please do, if you're watching along at home, stick around the sponsor booths. I believe we've got a little bit of a gap coming up.
Absolutely.
And check out DAZN. They seem to be an amazing company, and it might be one that you might be able to work for. Dennis,
Same
it
user.
has been a pleasure. Catch you very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Tony. See you together.